The wind howled like a living thing as Rowan Lattimer trudged through the deepening snow toward his barn, his breath forming clouds in the frozen air, and he almost missed seeing her, a dark shape crumpled against the fence post, green skin stark against the white landscape. He stopped, his hand instinctively moving to the axe at his belt before he realized the figure was not moving, not threatening, just lying there in a heap of torn fabric and trembling limbs. Rowan approached slowly, his boots crunching through the ice-crusted snow, and when he got close enough to see her properly, his heart clenched in his chest. She was young, maybe 19 or 20, with green skin that had taken on a grayish tinge from the cold. Her tusks were small, barely protruding past her lower lip, and her pointed ears were pressed flat against her skull as she curled into herself. Blood had frozen in her dark hair, and her clothes were nothing more than rags that would not have been adequate even in summer. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down beside her. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened amber, bright against the dark circles beneath them, and she flinched away from him with what little strength she had left. "Stay back," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I am not here to cause trouble. I will be gone soon." "You will be dead soon if you stay out here," Rowan said bluntly. He shrugged off his heavy wool coat and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. "Can you walk?" She tried to push herself up, but her arms gave out beneath her, and she collapsed back into the snow with a sound of frustration that turned into a sob. "I cannot. Leave me. It is what they wanted anyway." Rowan did not ask who they were. He had heard stories of orc clans casting out members who showed weakness or broke their strict codes. Instead, he slid one arm beneath her shoulders and the other under her knees, lifting her as carefully as he could. She was heavier than a human woman of her size would have been, all muscle and dense bone, but Rowan had been working his farm alone for 5 years since his father died, and he was strong enough to carry her. "What are you doing?" she asked, and there was fear in her voice now, raw and vulnerable. "Taking you inside where it is warm," he said simply. "My name is Rowan. What is yours?" She was silent for a long moment, as if debating whether to answer. Finally, quietly, she said, Tara Grimtooth, or I was. I have no clan name now." "Well, Tara," Rowan said as he kicked open the door to his small cabin and brought her into the warmth, "you have a place here until you decide otherwise." He set her down carefully on the bench near the fireplace and built up the fire until it was roaring, then brought blankets and wrapped them around her shaking form. Her lips had taken on a blue tint, and her teeth were chattering so hard he could hear them clicking together. Rowan heated water and made her drink it slowly, cup by cup, and then brought her warm broth that she held with trembling hands. "Why are you helping me?" she asked after a while, her voice stronger now. "Humans hate my kind." "Some do," Rowan admitted. He sat down across from her, close enough to the fire that he could feel its heat on his face. "But I figure anyone left to die in the snow deserves better than that, no matter what they look like." Tara studied him with those sharp amber eyes, and he could see her trying to decide if she could trust him. She was beautiful in a way he had never considered before. Her features were broader than a human woman's, her jaw stronger, but there was a delicacy to the curve of her cheek and the shape of her eyes that caught him off guard. "My clan cast me out 3 days ago," she said finally, staring into her cup. "I defended a human child who wandered into our territory. I could not let them hurt her, so I stood between them and her until she ran away. They said I had betrayed my blood, that I was weak and corrupted by human sentiment. My own brother was the one who threw me out into the cold." Rowan felt anger kindle in his chest, hot and sudden. "That is not weakness. That is courage." She looked up at him, surprised, and something shifted in her expression, a softening, perhaps, or the first crack in a wall she had built around herself. "You are strange for a human." "I have been told that before," Rowan said with a small smile. "Get some rest. We can figure out what comes next in the morning." Tara slept on the bench by the fire that first night, wrapped in every blanket Rowan owned, while he lay awake in his bed in the corner listening to her breathing and wondering what he had gotten himself into. He knew what the people in the nearby village would say if they found out he was harboring an orc. They would call him a traitor, or worse. But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was her lying in the snow, abandoned by everyone she had ever known, and he knew he had made the only choice he could live with. The next morning, Tara was awake before him, standing by the window and looking out at the snow-covered fields with an expression he could not read. She had kept his coat wrapped around her shoulders, and it dwarfed her frame despite her muscular build. "How are you feeling?" Rowan asked as he got up and started preparing breakfast. "Better," she said. "Stronger. I should leave before I bring trouble to your door." "Where will you go?" She was silent, and that was answer enough. There was nowhere for her to go, no clan to return to, no village that would accept her. She was alone in a world that saw her as a monster. "Stay," Rowan said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "At least until spring. I could use help with the farm, and you need a place to recover. We can help each other." Tara turned to look at him, and he saw hope war with suspicion in her eyes. "You would trust me to work beside you, to sleep under your roof." "I already do," Rowan pointed out. "You could have killed me in my sleep last night if you wanted to. Instead, you folded the blankets." A hint of a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, and it transformed her face entirely. "I suppose I did," and so Tara stayed. At first, she moved carefully through the cabin as if expecting him to change his mind at any moment. But as the days passed and Rowan continued to treat her with steady kindness, she began to relax. Her strength returned quickly. Orcs healed faster than humans, she explained, and soon she was helping him with the daily work of keeping the farm running through the harsh winter. Rowan discovered that Tara was tireless when it came to physical labor. She could split wood for hours without tiring, could haul water from the well with ease, and had a natural affinity for the animals that surprised him. His cantankerous old goat, who usually tried to headbutt anyone who came near her, took to Tara immediately and would follow her around the yard like a devoted dog. "You have a gift with animals," Rowan said one afternoon as he watched Tara coax the goat into letting her trim her hooves. "Orcs are taught to respect the natural world," Tara said without looking up. "We see animals as kin, not property. Your goat knows I mean her no harm." "What else are orcs taught?" Rowan asked. He found himself hungry to know more about her, about where she came from and who she had been before. Tara glanced at him, and he saw wariness flicker across her face. But then she seemed to make a decision, and she began to talk. She told him about her clan, about growing up in the mountains learning to hunt and fight and survive. She told him about the strict honor codes that governed every aspect of orc life, about the songs they sang and the stories they told around the fire. She told him about her mother, who had died giving birth to her younger sister, and her father, who had never looked at her the same way after. "I was always too soft," she said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "Too willing to question, too quick to show mercy. My brother said I was a disgrace to our bloodline. When I protected that human child, it was just the excuse he needed to be rid of me." "Your brother is a fool," Rowan said fiercely. "Mercy is not weakness. It takes more strength to be kind than cruel." Tara looked at him for a long moment, and something passed between them, a connection, fragile and new but real. "You are nothing like I thought humans would be," she said softly. Good, Rowan said. I would hate to be predictable. The winter deepened, and with it, so did the bond between them. They fell into an easy rhythm, working together during the day and sitting by the fire at night talking about everything and nothing. Rowan told her about his father, who had taught him to see the worth in all living things, and about his mother, who had died of fever when he was just a boy. He told her about the loneliness of working the farm alone, about the way the silence had sometimes felt like it would swallow him whole. "You are not alone anymore," Tara said one night, her voice quiet in the firelit darkness. "Neither are you," Rowan replied, and when their eyes met, he felt something shift in his chest, something warm and terrifying and wonderful all at once. He tried to ignore it at first, this growing attraction that pulled at him whenever Tara was near. It was foolish, he told himself. She was an orc and he was human, and the world would never accept them. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to deny what he was feeling. He found himself noticing the way she laughed, full and unguarded, when the goat did something particularly ridiculous. He noticed the strength of her hands and the gentleness with which she used them. He noticed the way she hummed while she worked, old orc songs in a language he did not understand but found beautiful nonetheless. Tara, for her part, seemed equally confused by her own feelings. Rowan would sometimes catch her watching him with an expression he could not quite read, and she would quickly look away, a faint green flush darkening her cheeks. She started taking care with small things, making sure his favorite mug was clean, mending a tear in his shirt without being asked, saving him the best portions at meals. The turning point came on a bitter night in the dead of winter when a pack of wolves attacked the henhouse. Rowan woke to the sound of chickens screaming and bolted outside with his axe, Tara right behind him with a heavy wooden club. The wolves were massive, their eyes gleaming yellow in the darkness, and there were 6 of them. Rowan swung his axe and drove one back, but another lunged at him from the side. He would have taken a terrible bite if Tara had not thrown herself between them, taking the wolf's teeth in her shoulder instead. She roared a sound that made Rowan's bones vibrate and brought her club down on the wolf's skull with crushing force. The other wolves, sensing they had picked the wrong fight, retreated into the night, leaving 2 of their pack dead in the snow. "Tara," Rowan said, dropping his axe and reaching for her. Blood was streaming down her arm, dark against her green skin. "You are hurt." "It is nothing," she said, but her voice was tight with pain. "It is not nothing," Rowan said fiercely. He half carried her back to the cabin and made her sit while he cleaned and bandaged the deep puncture wounds in her shoulder. His hands shook as he worked, and he could not stop thinking about how close he had come to losing her. "You should not have done that," he said, his voice rough. "You could have been killed." "So could you," Tara shot back. "Did you expect me to just stand there and watch?" "I expected you to keep yourself safe," Rowan said, tying off the bandage perhaps more tightly than necessary. "Why?" Tara challenged, her amber eyes blazing. "Why does it matter what happens to me?" "Because it does," Rowan said, and then, because he could not hold it in any longer, "because I care about you, Tara. Because the thought of you being hurt makes me feel like I cannot breathe. Because you are—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "Because I am what?" Tara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you are everything," Rowan said helplessly. "Because somewhere along the way I stopped thinking of you as a guest and started thinking of you as mine. As someone I want to protect and keep safe." And he broke off, shaking his head. "This is madness. I am sorry. I should not have said anything." But Tara reached out with her good hand and caught his wrist, her grip strong despite her injury. "Do you mean it?" she asked. "Or are you just saying words you think I want to hear?" "I mean it," Rowan said, meeting her eyes. "Every word. I know it is impossible. I know the world will never accept it, but that does not change how I feel." For a moment, Tara just stared at him, and Rowan braced himself for rejection, for mockery, for her to tell him he was a fool. Instead, she pulled him closer, her hand sliding up his arm to rest against his cheek. "I thought I was going mad," she said, her voice shaking. "I thought I was betraying everything I had ever known by feeling this way about a human. But Rowan, you have shown me more kindness in these few months than my own clan showed me in 20 years. You have made me feel seen and valued and wanted. How could I not fall in love with you?" Rowan felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. "You love me." "I do," Tara said, and there were tears in her eyes now. "I love you, even though it is foolish and dangerous and will bring nothing but trouble. I love you anyway." Rowan leaned forward and kissed her, gentle and reverent, and Tara made a small sound of surprise before kissing him back. Her tusks pressed against his face, unfamiliar but not unpleasant, and her lips were warm and soft. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "What do we do now?" Tara asked. "We figure it out together," Rowan said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." But trouble came sooner than either of them expected. A few weeks after the wolf attack, a group of men from the village arrived at Rowan's farm. He saw them coming from a distance and felt his stomach drop. There were 5 of them, all armed, and he recognized their leader as Marcus Finn, a man who had never liked Rowan and his family's liberal views on orcs. "Stay inside," Rowan told Tara. "Do not let them see you." "I will not hide while you face danger alone," Tara said stubbornly. "Please," Rowan said, taking her hands. "Please, Tara. Let me try to handle this without violence. If they see you, they will not listen to reason." Tara looked like she wanted to argue, but finally she nodded and retreated to the back room, though Rowan could tell from the set of her shoulders that she would not stay there if things went badly. Rowan went outside to meet the men, keeping his expression neutral. "Marcus, what brings you all the way out here?" "We heard troubling rumors, Lattimer," Marcus said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Word is you have been harboring an orc on your land." "Word is often full of lies and exaggeration," Rowan said calmly. "I have been managing my farm same as always." "Then you will not mind if we take a look around," Marcus said, and it was not a question. "Actually, I do mind," Rowan said, stepping into their path. "This is my land and you have no authority here. If you want to search my property, you can go to the magistrate and get a writ." Marcus's face darkened. "You are making this harder than it needs to be, Lattimer. Everyone knows orcs cannot be trusted. If you are hiding one, you are putting the whole village at risk." "The only risk to the village is ignorance and fear," Rowan said, his temper starting to fray. "Orcs are people same as us. They bleed and cry and love just like we do. If you cannot see that, then the problem is not with them. It is with you." "Orc sympathizer," one of the other men spat. "You are just like your father, too soft for your own good." "My father was a better man than any of you," Rowan said, his voice hard. "And he taught me that strength is not about who you can hurt. It is about who you can protect." Marcus reached for his sword, and Rowan tensed, preparing for a fight he knew he could not win alone. But before anyone could draw a weapon, the door to the cabin opened and Tara stepped out. She was magnificent in that moment, Rowan thought distantly. She stood tall and proud, her green skin vivid against the white snow, and she met the men's stares without flinching. In her hands, she carried no weapon, just her empty palms held out to show she meant no harm. "I am the orc you are looking for," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the yard. "My name is Tara Grimtooth, and I have been living here since the winter began. If you have a problem with that, take it up with me. Leave Rowan alone. He has done nothing wrong." "Tara, no," Rowan said, moving to stand beside her, but she shook her head. I will not let you take the blame for showing me mercy, she said softly, then turned back to the men. I know what you think of my kind. I know the stories you tell your children to keep them obedient. But I am not a monster. I have worked this land alongside Rowan. I have tended his animals and mended his fences and kept his home warm. I have done nothing to harm anyone. Orcs are all the same, Marcus said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Violent, savage creatures who cannot be trusted. I saved a human child from my own clan, Tara said. That is why they cast me out. That is why I was lying half frozen in the snow when Rowan found me. I chose a human life over my own family, and I would do it again. Does that sound like a monster to you? The men shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. One of them, a younger man Rowan recognized as the blacksmith's apprentice, lowered his sword. She does not look dangerous, he said quietly. She just looks scared. Of course she is scared, Rowan said, his voice rough with emotion. You came to her home with weapons and threats, but she came out anyway because she did not want me to get hurt. That is who she is. That is who you would kill or drive away because you are too blind to see past her skin. There was a long, tense silence. Then Marcus sheathed his sword with a sharp motion. Fine, he said. Keep your orc. But if anything happens, if a single person in that village gets hurt, we are coming back, and we will not be so understanding. Her blood will be on your hands, Lattimer. Nothing will happen, Rowan said firmly. You have my word. The men left, and Rowan and Tara stood in the yard watching them go until they disappeared over the hill. Then, Tara's knees gave out, and Rowan caught her, holding her close as she shook with the aftermath of adrenaline and fear. I thought they were going to kill you, she said into his shoulder. I thought I was going to watch you die because of me. I thought the same about you, Rowan said, pressing his face into her hair. Promise me you will never do something like that again. Promise me you will not offer yourself up like a sacrifice. I cannot promise that, Tara said. Not when it comes to you. I would give my life 100 times over if it meant keeping you safe. Then we are at an impasse, Rowan said, pulling back to look at her. Because I feel the same way about you. Tara laughed, a shaky, watery sound, and kissed him hard. We are both fools then. The best kind of fools, Rowan agreed. After that day, something changed. They had always been careful before, guarding their feelings and maintaining some distance, as if by not naming what they were to each other, they could keep it from being real. But now there was no point in pretending. The village knew. The world knew. And if they were going to face the consequences anyway, they might as well do it together. Tara moved into Rowan's bed that night, and they held each other close, trading kisses and whispered confessions until the fire burned down to embers. They made love slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies with reverent touches and soft gasps. Tara's skin was warm under Rowan's hands, and she was strong enough to pull him against her with a force that left him breathless. Afterward, they lay tangled together, and Rowan traced the line of her tusks with his fingertips. I want to marry you, he said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could second-guess them. I know it is not legal. I know no priest would perform the ceremony, but I want to call you my wife. I want to build a life with you. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. Tara went very still. You want to marry me? An orc. I want to marry you, Tara, Rowan said. I do not care what you are. I care about who you are. And who you are is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Tears spilled down Tara's cheeks, and she nodded, her voice breaking as she said, Yes. Yes, I will marry you. In whatever way we can, I will be your wife. They made their own vows under the stars a week later, with only the goat as a witness. Rowan had carved a ring from a piece of oak and polished it until it shone, and Tara had woven a bracelet from leather and the first wildflowers of spring. They spoke their promises to each other, simple and true, to love and protect, to stand together against whatever the world threw at them, to choose each other every day for the rest of their lives. "I call you husband," Tara said, slipping the bracelet onto Rowan's wrist. "I call you wife," Rowan said, sliding the ring onto her finger. "And I will call you that every day until I die." They sealed their vows with a kiss, and the world seemed to hold its breath around them, as if even the wind and the trees understood the significance of this moment. Spring came in full force after that, turning the farm into a riot of green and gold. Rowan and Tara worked side by side, planting crops and repairing fences and building a new chicken coop to replace the one damaged by the wolves. Word of their union spread, and while some in the village still looked at them with suspicion and disapproval, others began to cautiously accept them. The blacksmith's apprentice, whose name was Thomas, started making excuses to stop by the farm, always with some tool that needed sharpening or a question about metalwork. It became clear that he was fascinated by Tara and the idea that orcs and humans could live in peace. Soon he was bringing his younger sister, a girl of about 10 who was shy at first but quickly warmed to Tara's patient kindness. "Why do you have tusks?" the girl, Emma, asked one day with the blunt curiosity of children. "Because I am an orc," Tara said, crouching down to the girl's level. "All orcs have them. They help us eat tough foods and defend ourselves if we need to." "Can I touch one?" Emma asked. Tara glanced at Rowan, who nodded encouragingly, then leaned forward. "Gently," she said. Emma reached out and carefully ran her finger along the smooth curve of Tara's tusk, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is like ivory," she said. "Pretty." Tara's eyes went bright with tears, and she had to look away. Rowan knew that no one had ever called any part of her pretty before. Orcs valued strength and ferocity, not beauty, and humans had only ever seen her as monstrous. To be called pretty by a child, with all the innocent honesty children possessed, meant more than Tara could express. "Thank you, Emma," she said quietly. More people began to visit after that. A farmer whose pregnant cow was having trouble asked Tara for help after hearing about her skill with animals, and she stayed up all night with the creature, eventually delivering a healthy calf. An elderly woman sought Tara's advice on how to treat an infected wound using the herbs and poultices orcs favored, and the treatment worked better than anything the village healer had tried. Slowly, grudgingly, the village began to see Tara not as an orc, but as a person. Someone who could be trusted, someone who cared about the community and contributed to it, but not everyone was pleased by this acceptance. Marcus and his closest followers continued to view Tara as a threat, and they made their displeasure known through small acts of sabotage and intimidation. Someone trampled a section of Rowan and Tara's newly planted field in the night. Another time, their well was fouled with refuse. Rowan wanted to confront Marcus directly, but Tara urged caution. "Violence will only prove them right," she said. "We have to show them that we are better than their hatred." It was hard, but Rowan listened. They repaired the damage each time, worked twice as hard to overcome the setbacks, and refused to respond with anger. And slowly, the attacks lost their power. Other farmers started watching over their fields at night, making it harder for Marcus to strike unseen. The blacksmith, Thomas's father, publicly declared that anyone who harassed Rowan or Tara would no longer be welcome at his forge. The final blow to Marcus's campaign came from an unexpected source. Late one summer evening, a group of bandits attacked the village, seeking food and valuables. They were heavily armed and outnumbered the villagers, and things looked grim until Tara arrived. She had been in the fields with Rowan when they heard the screams, and they both ran toward the village without hesitation. When Tara saw what was happening, men with swords threatening people she had come to care about, something primal took over. She let out a roar that echoed off the hills and charged into the fray with a ferocity that left the bandits stunned. Rowan fought beside her, but it was Tara who turned the tide. She was a whirlwind of motion, disarming one bandit and knocking another unconscious with a single punch. Her orc strength and combat training made her nearly unstoppable, and the bandits, realizing they had picked the wrong target, fled into the night. The villagers stared at Tara in shock as she stood in the center of the square, breathing hard, her clothes torn and blood on her knuckles, none of it hers. For a moment, Rowan feared they would see only the violence, only the orc warrior who had just displayed the very savagery they had always feared. But then, Emma broke free from her brother's grip and ran to Tara, throwing her small arms around the orc woman's waist. "You saved us," the girl said, her voice muffled against Tara's stomach. "You saved everyone." And just like that, the dam broke. Other villagers came forward, thanking Tara, touching her arm or shoulder in gratitude. Even some of Marcus's former allies looked ashamed, unable to meet her eyes. Marcus himself stood at the edge of the crowd, his face twisted with conflicting emotions, before finally turning and walking away without a word. "Thank you," the village elder, a woman named Margaret Rivers, said, stepping forward. "We owe you a great debt, Tara Grimtooth. You have proven yourself a true friend to this community." Tara looked overwhelmed, her amber eyes shining. "I only did what anyone would do," she said. "This is my home too. These are my people too." "Yes," Margaret said firmly, "they are." After that night, everything changed. Tara was no longer the orc living on Rowan's farm. She was Tara, the woman who had saved the village. Invitations came for her and Rowan to attend gatherings and celebrations. Children waved to her in the street. Farmers sought her advice on everything from animal husbandry to crop rotation. For the first time in her life, Tara was not defined by her orc blood. She was defined by her actions, her kindness, her courage, and the weight she had carried for so long, the burden of being cast out, of being unloved and unwanted, finally began to lift. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over their fields, Tara leaned her head on Rowan's shoulder and said, "I never thought I could be this happy." "Neither did I," Rowan admitted. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "You know, when I found you in the snow, I had no idea what I was getting into. I just knew I could not leave you there." "And now?" Tara asked. "Now I cannot imagine my life without you," Rowan said. "You are my wife, my partner, my best friend. You are everything I did not know I needed." Tara turned to kiss him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Rowan Lattimer. Thank you for seeing me when no one else would. Thank you for calling me your own when I had nothing and no one." "You have me," Rowan said. "You will always have me." They sat together as the sky turned from gold to pink to purple, and Rowan thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. A year ago, he had been alone on this farm, going through the motions of surviving but not really living. Now he had a wife he adored, a community that had finally learned to look past their prejudices, and a future that seemed bright with possibility. The following spring, Tara gave birth to a daughter. She was perfect, with her mother's green skin and pointed ears and her father's hazel eyes. They named her Sarah, and she became the delight of the entire village. Children who had grown up fearing orcs now played with a half-orc baby and thought nothing of it. In Sarah, they saw not a monster, but a child like any other one who laughed and cried and needed love. "She is going to change the world," Tara said one night as she nursed Sarah by the firelight. "She is going to grow up knowing she belongs in both worlds, orc and human. She will never have to choose." "Neither do you," Rowan said, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from Tara's face. "Not anymore." Tara smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Rowan had ever seen his wife, his love, holding their daughter in the home they had built together. Outside, the world was still full of prejudice and fear, full of people who would never accept that an orc and a human could love each other. But here, in this small cabin on the edge of the frontier, they had created something pure and true. Years passed, and their family grew. 2 more children came, a son and another daughter, and the farm prospered. Tara's skill and strength combined with Rowan's knowledge and patience made them one of the most successful farming families in the region. Other mixed couples, human and orc, human and elf, even a dwarf and a human began to settle nearby, drawn by the example Rowan and Tara had set. The village that had once threatened to run Tara out became a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Children of all races played together. Farmers shared knowledge across cultural lines. And at the center of it all were Rowan and Tara, the couple who had proven that love could overcome even the deepest divisions. On their 20th wedding anniversary, the village threw a celebration in their honor. There was music and dancing, food and drink, and speeches from people whose lives Rowan and Tara had touched over the years. Emma, now a woman herself with a family of her own, spoke tearfully about how meeting Tara as a child had changed her understanding of the world. "You taught me that who we are is not determined by what we look like or where we come from," she said. "You taught me that courage means standing up for what is right, even when everyone tells you are wrong. You taught me that love is stronger than hate. Thank you for that gift." Rowan looked at Tara, saw the tears streaming down her green cheeks, and pulled her close. "Did you ever think we would end up here?" he asked. "Never," Tara said, laughing through her tears. "When you found me in the snow, I thought my life was over. I thought I had lost everything. But you showed me I had not lost anything. I had just not found it yet." "Found what?" Rowan asked. "Home," Tara said simply. "Family, love, you." They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by the people they loved and the community they had helped build. And as Rowan held his wife in his arms, moving to the rhythm of the music, he thought about that winter day when he had found her dying in the snow. He had made a choice then, the choice to show mercy, to extend kindness to someone the world had cast aside. It was the best choice he had ever made. Because in saving Tara, he had saved himself. He had found his purpose, his partner, his home. He had found love in the most unexpected place, and it had transformed not just his life, but the lives of everyone around them. That was the power of choosing compassion over fear, acceptance over hatred, love over prejudice. It rippled outward, touching hearts and changing minds until the world itself became a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, a little bit more full of hope. And it had all started with one man finding one orc woman shivering in the snow and choosing to call her his own.